Okay. Let me summarize where we are, for those who just joined as well. Mesilat Yesharim, are we recording? Right, Anava, Perik Chaf, is that right? 22. Humility. And you realize it's at the top of the, very close to the top of the pyramid here, because negation of ego is the secret to all spiritual growth. But by the way, negation of ego is necessary for you to be objective about anything. When you see the world through your own personality, you don't see it the way it is. No? So Wesley used to say that the vision you have of the world, right, is to say this. It says that people see the world through an aspaklaria. Aspaklaria means a lens. Some say a mirror, but let's say a lens. So you see the world through your own lens. So the Gemara says that there was only one person who saw through an aspaklaria ha-me'ira. Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, saw through a lens that is me'ir. Me'ir means gives light, but you could translate it as completely transparent. Everybody else sees through a lens. She'ena, the other prophets saw through lenses she'ena me'ira, right? They saw through a lens that was not completely clear. You might say in English tinted or right, so they're not so completely clear. So he was the only one who was able to see through a clear lens. He's referring, the more there's referring to his prophecy, which was unadulterated prophecy at a level where there was no difference between the prophet and the prophecy. But Rav Dessler, of course, giving it a Musa interpretation, says something very memorable. He says, what's the difference between somebody looking through a clear lens and someone looking through a sullied or soiled or colored or tinted lens? The difference is when you look through a clear lens, you see what is. When you look through a soiled lens, the more dirty the lens is, the more of a reflection of yourself you see. Right? Because you don't know that, so you think you're seeing reality. The more clouded your lens is, the less you're aware of it, obviously, right? The more big deal you think you are being objective. And eventually, if your lens is so clouded, you look at the world, all you see is yourself. And if you go far enough down that line, you could kill people with complete abandon. You could kill millions of people, doesn't that happen to you kill in Syria or Russia or wherever it is, because, you know, the world is me. Right? So, and in a relationship, of course, somebody looking at someone else, a partner in a relationship through a clouded lens, they see the partner as simply a reflection of their own needs. But of course the tragedy is not that you're selfish, the tragedy is that you don't know. That's the problem. If you're in a relationship and you know you're selfish, well, it's okay, you can manage it. But if you think you're being selfless, meantime all you're doing is using your partner for your own needs, right? And you think you're being, that person's almost hopeless in such a situation. So, right, that is, and of course the first thing is you'll be unobjective and cause unknown suffering. And the next step is you'll use people. Anyway, that's the point. And therefore, the first step on the path of spiritual growth is self-awareness, and that's why the first step in our ladder was mindfulness, right? Zahirut, mindfulness. Mindfulness means taking the calm, introspective time to see things as they are. And there are only two ways to see things as they are, right? You only have two tools. One tool, brutal honesty with yourself, which is a broken tool, but it's one of the only two you have. Another one is Asay l'charav, make yourself a teacher. You have to make yourself a teacher. You have to have a teacher who is honest, not afraid to tell you the truth about yourself, can see objectivity that you cannot see, and you have to be prepared to be hurt. Right? You have to be prepared to be broken by your teacher, just like you'd be prepared to be insulted by your music teacher, or you're prepared to be beaten up by your martial arts teacher. No? You don't want a martial arts teacher who treats you gently, it might cost your life. You want him to break a few ribs now and then. Right? They don't teach you to defend yourself. I was once, when I was a teenager, I was studying martial arts, and I had the opportunity to study with a very, very accomplished, amazing guy. He was a fourth Dan, you know, in one of the Japanese schools of karate. He was a very, very amazing guy, but he was very, very unlikely. I mean, he was no taller than me, slimmer than me, a wiry, thin, looked like he could really, you know, but I mean, yeah, I could see he was good, but, you know. So one day we were having a class, about 20 people in the class, and I was sparring with him. So I was trying my best, you know. It was very interesting. Every time I hit him, he wasn't there. But anyway, be there as a man. So after we were sparring for a couple of minutes, I said to him, you know, could you just fight me genuinely? Just for like 1 minute. Just like, let me see like what it is. He said, are you sure? You're just playing around, right? He said, okay. So I got ready, and the next moment I found myself in the far corner of the gymnasium, tied up in a heap. My head was under my, you know, a bad bruise someplace, you know. I don't see what happened. I think he hit me when I blinked. I still don't know what he did. So he said, well, I said, no, I said, it's okay. I got your message. You know. But I mean, there was a whole new madrega, as they say, right? So if you have a teacher, you want the teacher, right, to tell you where you're wrong, not where you're right.
Was he Japanese or?
He wasn't Japanese. He was Jewish.
He was Jewish.
He was Jewish. Yeah, Jewish guy. Anyway, married to an Asian lady, I think she was. Anyway. But the point is that you want somebody who's your teacher who's going to open you up. Today, people are very fragile. You need to be very careful with people's self-esteem. You have to be very careful, of course, and with children, you have to build them up. First, you can't break somebody down unless they're built up first. You need self-confidence. You need a genuine student of Torah knows that if his Rebbe insults him, it's a praise. The Hasidim say that if the Rebbe smacks you, you make a kiddush. It's a celebration. If he ignores you, you're in trouble. If he ignores you, and the martial arts teacher goes around and he corrects every student carefully. When he comes to you, he says, and he moves on to the next guy. You're in real trouble. The guys that he's correcting have got potential, right? The people that the Rebbe, when Hashem doesn't pay any attention to you, you go 40 days with no suffering, you're in big trouble. If you spend 40 days and you have no suffering, you're in big trouble. He's not speaking to you, it's just like he washed his hands of you. Right? The worst judgment you can have from heaven is no judgment at all. It's like a parent says to his child, I've tried everything, I'll just wash my hands of you. Whatever you want to do, just do it. Right? So the two tools you have are Aseh Lecharav, make yourself a teacher, and the other tool is struggling with yourself to be honest and objective and examine your motivations. And this is the Kelm school of Musa, is to look into the psyche and see what really motivates you. Are you being objective when you're giving someone a gift? Are you really doing it as an on mark of respect, or are you doing it because you want to be appreciated? Right? How much, and of course there's always some of both, how much are you fooling yourself, right? How much, when you engage in a relationship with someone else, how much are you doing it because you love them and you want to help them, and how much is it because you need it? Right? So you have to, until you see things objectively, and anava is the pinnacle of that quality. It is complete dissolution of ego. And at that point, you can see things objectively. And then the real paradox takes place. The person who's genuinely empty becomes genuinely full. The greatest person who ever lived was Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, right? He was the greatest who ever lived because he was the humblest. When you become humble, it doesn't mean you become nothing. When you become genuinely humble, then you become genuinely worthy of respect. Of course, it doesn't mean anything to you, but you will become genuinely worthy of respect. And people feel that. People feel that genuinely selfless and humble people, they are greatly admired. And people like that become famous and honored and very great. Paradoxically. Right? That's the statement in Chazal, that the only one who flees honor is pursued by it. Right? Okay, now...
So that's the reason, according to Rav Dessler, why Moshe Rabbeinu was the only one looking through the Aspaklaria mirror, because he was an honor of Mikol Adam.
Yes, it doesn't say that. I don't think he says that, but it seems to be clear, yeah. Sure, it's only because you honor Mikol Adam, that you've got no ego at all, that you've polished your lens clearly. And by the way, the Meshech Chochmah phrases the other side of the equation. He says Moshe Rabbeinu got to a level where he lost free will. You see, if you have free will, it means you're struggling between options. So it means your lower side's still speaking to you. You may make all the right decisions, but you have to use your free will to do it. And that means you have a dark side, which means your lens is still capable of obstructing you. Meshech Chochmah says Moshe Rabbeinu got to a level where he had no longer free will at all, which means really he could only choose right because the dark side didn't speak at all. Wherever he looked, he saw reality.
But he did make mistakes.
Oh, good question. Good question. If you look in the new Meshech Chochmah, the commentator who edited it raises the question. He says, if Moshe Rabbeinu got to a level where he had no more free will, how did he make the mistake of hitting the rock instead of speaking to it? Yeah. So the answer is he made the same kind of mistake that angels make. Angels can make mistakes because they have no free will. When the angels went to Sodom, right, they made a mistake. They said to Lot, you better get out of here fast because we're about to destroy the city. So Chazal say, what do you mean you're about to destroy the city? There was an angel expressing ego. I'm about to destroy the city. You're not going to do anything, you're just an agent of Hashem. And because of that, the angels were made to eat their words. When they're outside the city, they said to Lot, flee quickly to the place you want to go, because we cannot begin our destruction until you move. You can't move until, admit that you're powerless. Now, how did an angel make a mistake? Okay, so there is a category here of mistake made like an angel. It is similar to Adam's mistake, Adam and Chava, right? When Adam made a mistake, he didn't make an error of temptation, he didn't fall into temptation. On the contrary, he had no temptations. He chose to bring temptation into his being. Well, how can you make a mistake like that if you're not tempted? The answer is he made a misjudgment. He was operating at a level where there's no good and bad, there's only right and wrong, only false and true and false. So he made a misjudgment, and the misjudgment was based on a very, 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 very subtle and deep level of his character. And after that, he became subject to temptations and lusts and cravings. Right? He was responding to a serpent who did not speak from within. The serpent spoke from without. So there is a category of error you can make at an incredibly high level, which is like Adam and Eve could have made, like an angel. And Moshe Rabbeinu made that sort of a mistake. Now, it needs a lot more discussion. But the point is, says the Meshech Chochmah categorically, he actually lost his free will. Of course, you don't lose your free will unless you deserve it. Right? The classic example we have is we can show people at a much lower level who lost their free will as well, based on the same calculation. You know that Pharaoh lost his free will. Right? After 5 plagues of misbehaving, Hashem said to him, from now on, I will make a monkey out of you. From now I'm going to beat you down, and I'm not going to give you any choice. You'll be forced to choose wrong, so that I can wipe out your country with, miraculous plagues. And the answer to the question there is, why would Hashem punish somebody when he's taken away his free will? On the contrary, why would Hashem take away human beings' free will? And not only that, he takes away Pharaoh's free will, gives him choices, knowing that he cannot choose correctly, and beating him down each time. How unfair is that? And the answer is clear. The answer is he only did that after Pharaoh chose wrong 5 times. You want to so use your free will badly. You want to use your free will when I gave you 5 miraculous plagues to show you the reality. And you're so stubborn and wicked, you insist on choosing wrong every time. If you use your free will wrongly badly enough, you get to a position where you lose it. An addict who chooses addictive behavior will eventually get to a point where they can no longer reject it. They're too addicted. They would die if they reject it. How can you blame them? You can't blame them now, but you can blame them for the optional steps they took that got them into this situation. After Pharaoh used his free will wrongly so many times, Hashem said, you've lost the right to your free will. So when he beat him down 5 times subsequently, Hashem was not being unfair. He was dealing with an individual who had used his free will to give it away. And by the way, we are reading about Joseph this week. Right? In this week's parsha we read about Joseph being seduced by a woman. She spent a whole year trying to seduce him in the most aggressive fashion. 17-year-old boy, right, at the height of his adolescent passions. Here comes this woman. She's trying to seduce him in the most extreme fashion, right? So the Torah indicates for a whole year he resisted it. One day he was weakened, he just couldn't. He came up, she was alone in the house. She propositioned him. He just couldn't. He couldn't resist anymore. He dug his nails into the ground, his toenails into the ground. He was trying hard. He could not resist it. And at the last minute, as he was about to sin, a vision of his father's face appeared at the window. Right? And he saw his father looking at him, and he realized, how can I do this? And she had his garment in her hand. He ran it, right? The question there is, I would very much like it every time I'm about to sin. I see a vision of my father's face that saves me. That's very convenient. When you're about to sin and you're in the grip of some craving or passion, you lose. It would be very nice to have some warning. Tap on the window, you see Hashem's face looking in the window. Why don't I get that? The answer is, he spent a year controlling his passions to the extent that he built up a credit balance. Pharaoh spent a whole, he built up a debit in his free will. Once you built up a debit balance, and now Hashem is not going to extend a loan anymore. But a righteous person who builds up a credit balance, he's so unrealistically and unnaturally resisted this temptation so many times. But finally he lost it. Hashem said, you deserve help. So the assistance you get to your free will is only because you invested free will in this thing in the first place. Right? That's the calculation, yeah.
Why specifically with Pharaoh was it 5 times? As opposed to
how many times would you like?
3 is a chazaka. So why specifically?
I guess Hashem is kindly extended him another few options. I don't know, I need to think about it. But the principle is clear, and maybe this needs more than a chazaka. I don't know. Anyway, that is the idea of the limits to free will, and Moshe Rabbeinu got to the level where he blew out the top, but he deserved it. He spent a lifetime. Of course he was incredibly gifted, sure, you use your gifts. But he got to a point eventually where he no longer needed to make an effort to choose correctly. That he was completely in another world, unlike any other human being.
What is it about Moshe Rabbeinu that in the first place he was on a much...
he was created for that.
Pardon?
He was created for that.
Right,
the Jewish people are created with a leader who's in the transcendent world to connect us to that world.
So when he was born, he was already on a different level in the first place, obviously.
Completely. Makes no difference to him. His work is still to perfect himself at his level.
And why he
When you
was
say he was perfect in potential. He still had to spend years as a shepherd, and 80 years. I don't think he only came back to eat when he was 80. So he spent many decades learning to take care of the sheep in the wilderness and putting himself through, whatever it was that his training required. But yes, he was incredibly gifted. We needed a gift of a person like him, and the non-Jews needed Bilam to be equivalent to that. Just like we need a king. The king is the point of contact with the higher world. He was the point of unification, like in the Kabbalistic system, that connects us to the higher world. Okay, now, we spoke about temptation of pride in intellect. Right? He said that a very tempting area to become egotistical is to be very intelligent. If you're very muscular and powerful and strong, that may be one temptation, right? But it's more tempting, a person of great intellect, an incredibly powerful mind, is a person who is tempted to take pride in his own intellectual power. And the reason that's a greater temptation is because intellect is more godly, it's more spiritual, it's more elevated than muscle, right? A person who's powerful, proud of his great muscles and can pick up heavy weights is probably not as tempted in relative terms as somebody who's very intellectually powerful. People who understand much about all sciences and all wisdoms. Today, I think it's probably less of a temptation because the more we advance intellectually, the more we realize we don't know. But there was a time when people thought they could actually encompass all wisdom. There was a time like that. One of the great scientists of the 1920s, I don't want to discredit anyone by saying the wrong name, but one of the great scientists of the early part of the last century said we have now arrived at a point where all science is known to us. He said there will be no more significant discoveries. That's what he said. This was before quantum mechanics and relativity came. Yeah, I mean Einstein in 1905 already published his first paper, right? But I mean, so this was 1900. He had all of Newton's laws, all of mechanics was explained, all of electromagnetism was explained, right? I mean, so he made an announcement. He said we've now come to the end of all. There will be no scientific advances from here on in, only details to be filled in. And he wasn't an idiot. He was the world looked that way. The world looked like that. Then Einstein comes in 1905 and he just blew it away, right? Newton's wrong. And then quantum mechanics. If you aren't humbled by quantum mechanics, nothing will humble you. In quantum mechanics, there are complete paradoxes. You shine a ray of light through two slits, it goes through both of them. You observe the experiment, it only goes through one. You know that in quantum mechanics, if you observe the experiment, it changes the experiment. The photons know what you... So today, you can't be... I think Richard Feynman said, if a theory of physics today isn't crazy, it's definitely wrong. It's got it. So today they're probably a bit more humble in that way, but there were times when people thought they could encompass everything. You know the Oxford English Dictionary. James Murray was the editor of the dictionary. It took 70 years to make the dictionary. They thought they'd encompass the whole English language. Right? It eventually took £365,000 in those days. It took 70 years. 70 years to make Oxford. It came out in 20 volumes when it came out originally. It was in 450,000 words. And it was obsolete 3 years later. They had published a published thing with 50,000 new words, and then, and it's still going on. Because, but there was a time when people, and who was this Murray? Who was this James Murray? He was one of the world's greatest linguists, right? Compiling the English dictionary. He spoke Aramaic, Syriac, Greek, Latin, 3 dialects of ancient Phoenician. I mean, like, and by the way, his day it wasn't uncommon. If you spoke to scholars at Oxford and Cambridge, like it was you didn't get in on this. You already spoke and wrote Greek, Latin, French, Italian, German. But they spoke ancient language. Today you get people who graded languages and they can converse in 3 or 4 or 5 languages. But they could read and write ancient language. At Cambridge, were you with us? You go to Cambridge, right, and you go to the Geniza over there. The non-Jewish guy who runs it. It's a non-Jewish guy, married to a girl from a kibbutz. The guy who runs it can speak 4 dialects of Aramaic. He knows how they were pronounced, right? Let alone Hebrew. I mean, but 100 years ago at Oxford and Cambridge, that was standard. And it was absolutely standard. You studied classics, you read Greek in the original, there's no question, right? The 2 British ladies who discovered the Ben Sira in Egypt, they discovered Ben Sira. the deal their father made with them when they were teenagers was every summer he let them go on holiday in Europe to any country they wanted. The condition was that they learned the language of the country that so by the time they were 25, they spoke Greek, Italian, French, Romanian, you know, I think they're working on Basque and Catalonian, I mean, you know, no problem. Yeah. So there's been a tremendous shrinking. People say we're going up intellectually, you know. We
run on machines these days.
Yeah, that's what I'm good, yeah. Okay, so, right, now let's go to the next one. V'hinei ad ata, hinei dibarnu ad ata me'anavat hamachshava. We've spoken up to now. I'm on the bottom of the page of the Kufyud Bet. Right, it's the third or fourth page in the chapter of Anava. We have been speaking up to now about humility when it comes to the mind. Nedaber ata me'anavat hama'aseh. Let's now talk about humility in the zone of action. When it comes to actions, when it comes to actions, then let us talk about a new type of. Let's talk about a new type of humility, which is the question of action, not intellect. This is midat anava. Yes, yes. So we are dealing with, now we're moving to action. You see the page, you all have it?
Yeah.
V'daber ata me'anavat ha'maseh, v'hi titchalek la'arba'a chalakim. We're used to his style by now, right? He's going to categorize it in 4 sections, right? Superb, organizer, and categorization. Bitnaheg atzmo b'shiflut. When you conduct yourself with great humility, shiflut means lowliness. Bisvol ha'elbonot, suffering insults, right? To be able to absorb insults. Bisno harabanut, hating leadership. Rabbanut means, today, technical terms, rabbanut means the rabbinate, right? But in general terms, it means leadership or authority. Uborech min hakavod, fleeing from honor. Bachalok kavod lakol, and giving other people honor, giving other honors. So we're going to talk about 4 categories of these types of lowly conduct. Ha'echadu, what is the first one? Bitnaheg b'shiflut, conducting yourself with lowliness, right? To behave in a lowly fashion. Now we'll see what that means. This is not me making yourself disgusting and offensive. But what does it mean? Zera ushiyeh. This is fitting. How will you conduct yourself b'shiflut? With great humility, b'diboro, the way you speak, b'alichato, the way you walk, b'shifto, the way you sit, b'chol tnuotav, all your movements. So that all your conduct in the world, speaking, walking, sitting, and the way you move, the Gemara says you can tell if someone's wise by the way that he walks. Right? So movements are going to indicate a certain humility. B'diboro, how does that work in speech? Amruzal, the sages said, always speak pleasantly to people. Nachat means pleasantly. Right? You don't have to get... again, there are times when you need to show a stern voice maybe to a child. It's appropriate because you're not out of control. You're doing it because he needs to be disciplined. But the general mode that you adopt is nachat. Nachat means pleasantly. I was once in Rav Moshe Shapiro's sukkah when someone came in and started insulting him. Right? This is Israel, you know. Speak their mind. I have no inhibitions. We're sitting in the sukkah, you know, and about 8 of us were sitting around, we were listening to him teaching, and the fellow walks in, big, aggressive, you know, anti-religious person who was hired by a debt collection company. And he operates by terrifying people into, you know. So he bursts into that, Mikan Shapira. Whoa. You know, we call him Harav, you know. We were so paralyzed. I mean, the fellows would have got up and shredded him limb from limb, but we just sat there like this, you know. That he was carrying a check signed by some Shapiro that had been paid to Mashbir, that hadn't been honored. Rosh Shapiro doesn't have a bank account. He didn't have a bank account. He had hesitations about bank accounts from the point of view of taking interest. And he said, no, he said, honey, no, it's completely even-toned, no, you know, no, and the guy started yelling at him about paying his debts, you know, not completely. He said, no, it can't be, you know, I don't have everything, you know, I don't have an account, you know. By that stage, we were all, you know, the guy's life was, you know, in danger. But he was so shocked, he never met anybody that he started terrorizing. He just kind of spoke to him calmly. He had no what to do, he didn't know what to say. The guy just kind of backed out. He didn't find so much Shapiro. Anyway, the point is that, of course, it's easy to do that when you prepare. When you're prepared for it and you can put on a show, it's easy. But it's a reflex. That's the problem. What's your reflex when you're driving and someone insults you unfairly and starts yelling and screaming? What's your reflex? You roll down the window and say, I'm sorry, must be my fault. That's not what people do. But the person who conducts himself anavad is always speaking pleasantly. He doesn't only mean when it's easy. Umikra malehu, this is based on a verse which says openly, Divrei chachamim benachat nishmaim. The words of the wise are heard when they speak pleasantly. If you want someone to hear you, speak calmly and pleasantly. If you start yelling and screaming, they can't hear you. If you yell and scream at your child, right, or you yell and scream at your husband, you know, or your wife, they're not going to hear you. But if you call her darling, right, if you put your arm around and call her darling, then you can insult her as much as you want. Right? That's the way it goes. You know, when Yaakov arrived at the well, and all the shepherds were there, they weren't watering the flock. They were standing around chatting, right? And Yaakov's a shepherd. He arrives there. You guys are paid to graze the sheep, right? Here you're standing around the well chatting. So he went and he said to them, you know, what are you doing? Like, you know, this is not time to gather the flocks in. So they told him there's a stone on the well. We have to wait until there's enough of us to take the stone off the well. That's why we can't. He didn't realize that was the problem. When he saw the problem, he went and he lifted it up by himself. But the question they ask on this is, he walks into this gang of shepherds. Now, the Torah's assumption is that shepherds are the lowlifes in the world. They're the problematic, they always let their sheep eat other people's grass. That's the assumption. So you're talking about violent lowlifes, right? He walks into the middle of these, he's a complete stranger. He walks in and he says, hey, you guys you're thieves. You know, you're not earning your... You picture the scene. You know, here's a little bar in the Midwest, American Midwest. There's 20 Hells Angels, right, standing around the bar, you know, with their spikes and their weapons and their... this nerd from Harvard walks in and says, hey, you guys are a bunch of thieves. Take him apart. That's Yaakov. He walks in and he says, what are you guys doing, right? And they didn't attack him. They said, no, let's explain to you. You know, it's because of this. What happened? Look at the speech. He walks in and he says, my brothers. Achai, my brothers. What's going on? Ooh, you're calling your buddies. Buying a few drinks, calling your buddies. Then you can ask them why they're hanging out in the motorcycle. You know? So there's a way to speak to people, right? So that's the way it goes, right? So divrei chachamim benachat nishmaim. The word, people think the louder they speak, the more they're going to get hurt. And the other guy starts yelling louder, then you start yelling, right? That's not the way to do it. Tzarich sheyu dvarav divrei kavod velo divrei bizayon. Your words need to be words of honor and not words of disgrace. Of course, again, let me be clear, there's a time for being sharp. Somebody asked a stupid question in a class and he used to be disciplined. Rosh Hashanah was very, very harsh. Very, very harsh. And with the same person in private, when he needed encouragement, he'd be very gentle. So it depends on the situation, but it's under control. But the default is divrei kavod. You want to be honest, you need to speak respectfully. A verse in Mishlei, somebody who is baz l're'ehu, baz means who despises his friend, openly, he lacks heart. You don't have any heart when you just belittle someone, right? You're not going to get anywhere like that. Again, we're not talking about situations where in public somebody is belittling Torah or insulting the good and they need to be put down. There are times when you need to make what's called a macha'ah. Macha'ah means a public statement that something is wrong, even if they won't listen to you, because you can't be assumed to be condoning something that's wrong. There are times when you need to do that. But we're not talking about a loss of control, but the default position is somebody who speaks pleasantly, intelligently, with respect. The verse says when an evil person arrives, Then buz means
Contempt.
what? Contempt.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, good word. Yeah. When an evil person arrives, contempt arrives, not respect. Balichato. Now, walking. How do you walk? Amuzal shalchu mitam. They sent from there. Ezehu ben haolam haba. Who is a person who belongs in the world to come? Anvetan ushpal berech. He is a humble person, lowly of knee, of the knee. That means he walks in a humble fashion. He doesn't walk around, right? He doesn't walk around groveling with his nose on the ground, and he doesn't walk around looking down his nose at everybody, right? That's a person who's got a humble way of walking. This is dignity. There's dignity, but not excessive pride and not excessive. That's what the halach is. Shayef ayil, shayef nafak. That means half bent and half straight. It's a person who walks with dignity, erect posture, but fitting and healthy, not extreme. V'lo yelech b'komas kufa. He does not walk with an over-erect posture. V'lo bichveidut gadol akev b'tzad gudal. And he doesn't walk with excessive, meticulous, mincing steps. You know, means puts his heel next to his toe. Akev b'tzad gudal, right? Mincing along with great, every step is weighed and, in the public eye, right? There's a pedantic pride. He walks like anybody going to get something done. You're walking to get something. How do you walk to the kitchen to fetch a cup of tea? That's how you should walk on the street. You don't walk in your house looking down your nose, and you don't grovel on the thing. You walk in a way that is purposeful. That's a humble way to walk. Notice he doesn't say you've got to make yourself look ridiculous and false humility. It's got to be dignified. And by the way, somebody who represents Torah has to have extra dignity. Right? If you represent a position, you represent a group or a nation, or you represent Torah, Judaism, then you have to be even more. Your clothes have to be clean, and there's a certain kind of dignity. That's called Kabbalah Torah, when you're in a public capacity. That's why the Gemara says that a sage, a rabbi, should have 1/8 of an eighth of pride. Shminit shebeshminit shel ga'ava. He should have 1/8 of an eighth of pride. Gava means dignity. So Shmir explained, why is an eighth of an eighth? Beautiful. I have to take some mind like his to explain it. Because we know that any time you have less than 1 in 60, it's not tangible. Right? If a little bit of milk falls into a mixed meat stew, and it's less than 1 in 60 parts, the milk cannot be tasted and the mixture is kosher. An eighth of an eighth is the first multiple of a whole number that is less than 1 in 60. An eighth of an eighth is 1/64th. So a learned rabbi should have 1/64th parts of pride. You can't taste it, but it's something that, if you taste it, it means you see the pride, so that's inappropriate. It's got to be just below the borderline of what can actually be discerned. It's like putting salt into your food. If you can taste the salt, you put too much. The right amount of salt is what brings the taste of the food out. No? I think I told you once in northern Italy, right? They call a dish that is unsalted sciocco. Sciocco in Italian means foolish. They're beautiful. What amazing. Italians are amazing. Foolish, a person without any sense, is like a dish that is not salted. And salting doesn't mean you make it taste salty. Then you ruin it. The right amount of salt. Too little salt, the food tastes bland. The beauty of salt, the Torah talks about this. The concept of salt, unlike other spices, the concept of salt is it's there to bring out the natural taste, not to make it taste salty. You have to have enough pride in your conduct that the genuine personality comes out. As soon as you can feel the pride that he's overdone it. Right? A good cook knows you put the right amount of salt in that enhances the flavor. Too little, the flavor doesn't come out. Too much, you taste the salt. You overdid it. Right? And it's not easy to get that balance. Not easy. Borderline. Someone told me recently, what does an avocado say? What would an avocado say if it could speak? Not yet, too late. Not South African avocados, they're always rough. But anyway, it's a delicate balance.
Right, but why, if we do 1/64 here, why don't we apply the same logic elsewhere?
In what? In what?
I mean, why batel b'shishit, or batel b'shichat b'shishim?
No, because the Metzius says that. The Metziut is 60 is the borderline of taste. Less than that you can't taste, and more than that you can. That's a reality. Unless it's a very spicy ingredient. If it's milk and meat,
yeah,
Even a professional cook cannot taste it less than 1 in 60, and a professional cook can taste it at more than 1 in 60. Ask me why Hashem created the world that way.
No. I'm saying, but why don't we stick to the whole number rationale?
Because we don't give fractions. Where do you see in the Mishnah?
No, what's that about 1 over 60 is
Yes.
what? What multiplication of what number by what number?
There doesn't have to be a multiplication.
Shminit shel shminit.
No. That if you want to say to, how would you say to somebody, make sure you have less than 1 in 60 parts of pride?
Or
So-
make sure you've got 1 less 60 part milk in meat, whatever.
We do. We say 1 in 60. But when it's more than 1 in 60, we have a whole number of expressing that. So we say an eighth of an eighth. We're going to talk 64. The Maharal says that the gematria of Kohen is 75.
75, yeah.
We don't talk about 7.5. We choose whole numbers. 75 is between 7 and 8. The Kohen is between the natural and the supernatural. No, it's just a hint. It's a hint. Anyway, so you should walk around with that sort of a pride. When a woman walks, a woman has to have a style, which is a dignity and a refinement. Less than that is not projecting her beauty correctly, and more than that is provocative, right? And it's a balance. You can't look it up in a book, but a woman who knows how to present her elegance, it's a feeling. Yeah? It's a feeling. It's not. You can't measure the length of the skirt or the sleeve. It's not. There's a certain. Some ladies can wear a potato sack and look provocative, and others can wear, the little. They stepped out of Cosmopolitan magazine and look decent. Cosmopolitan, is that what it is? By the way, just out of interest, Cosmopolitan, about a year ago, they ran an amazing article by a religious Jewish girl, who's actually one of the editors, who my daughter actually taught. A very interesting article in Cosmopolitan magazine on elegance, looking religious. In other words, a beautiful article on how she dresses. She's a religious girl, so she has long sleeves and long skirts. A beautiful fashion article. Very interesting, right? On how you can observe Jewish law and be in the pages of Cosmopolitan. It's a very beautiful piece. You look it up.
Okay.
So they also many years ago ran an article about Jewish marital law, amazingly. Cosmopolitan, they ran an article, and that article stimulated many non-Jews to start keeping Jewish marriage law because it's good for marriages. Amazing. Anyway, this was about a year or maybe 2 years, an article on elegance and in accord with Jewish law. You don't have to wear nothing to look elegant like some of them seem to think, right? You can be very... And it's a style, it's a certain balance. It's hard to put it into words here. How a person should walk, how he should talk. There's too little, which is wrong, and there's too much, which is prideful. There's a certain... This you need to learn in person. You need to have a sense, and you need to see people in the Torah world, and you need to... Right? You get a feel for this. Me personally, I'm thinking of wearing those big furry hats and a long frock. And okay, anyway. You should not walk around in a haughty, over-erect fashion, which is like you're pushing God out of the way, right? Beautiful image. Like the divine presence is standing here, and you're pushing, you're getting in my way, Hashem, that kind of thing, right? I'm here now. Uktim, it says, V'ramei hakoma geduim. Those who are ram koma means very uplifted of stature, they are geduim. Gada means to be cut, right? To be cut down. Beshifta, how do you sit? Shema komo ben hashvalim. Where do you sit? You sit among the ordinary people. Don't have to go and sit below ben haramim. Do not go and choose your seat among all the leaders. Again, if you're a leader, then you have to. If you're the rabbi of the community or the president of the corporation, then you're doing a disservice to the corporation when you go and sit among on the curb in the street. You've got a certain position, right? But it must be fitting to your. If you're an ordinary person and you walk into a room and you go sit among all the dignitaries, right? And that's not where you belong. That's wrong. Sit among the ordinary people. V'lo ben haramim. Choose the ones who are ordinary. Sit among, associate with those who are simple, rather than those who are elevated. It's also a verse. You see, it's showing in every case. You're not making it up. There's a Torah indication for each of these. Do not make yourself mehudar, that means excessively beautiful, in the presence of a king. And do not stand in the place of the great. It's a verse in Mishlei that tells you, right, know your place appropriately and don't seek to stand out in an inappropriate, assertive way. And by the way, let me remind you, please, that we are dealing with a part of the triangle now that is way beyond what is obligatory. Let's just be clear about this, especially for those of you. Who's got the sheet, please? Somebody got a sheet here? No? Yes, please. Let me remind you that we are now working on our triangle. Remember, we're climbing a ladder of 3 triangles, right? The first triangle is becoming a tzaddik. These qualities are necessary to do what you need to do in the world. The second triangle is a chassid. That's going beyond what you need to do. So we way beyond the minimal obligatory level. There's no prohibition to sit among the haughty people. There's no prohibition to walk around with your nose in the air. Where does the Torah say you shouldn't do that? Not prohibited. You're just an idiot. No? The Torah doesn't say thou shalt not be an idiot. Now we're on the third triangle, which is out of this world. Do not make a mistake. When we're learning here, you must sit among the lowly people and speak in a pleasant fashion. This is not basic law like you've got to eat kosher food and keep Shabbat. This is optional of optional. This is for people who've really transcended. This is for people who've already perfected. They're really doing everything they need to be doing in the world. Is this clear? You have to see things in proportion, right? When he tells you, sit correctly, dress in appropriately modest fashion, speak in a calm voice, right? So if you raise your voice occasionally, you're not breaking a law of the Torah. You're not going to be an elevated, refined person, right? You have to keep this in mind. Okay, this is very elevated stuff. It's very challenging to conquer your ego completely, right, and polish that lens completely. Is it essential? Yes, but it's essential in terms of spiritual growth. Not essential like keeping Shabbat and eating kosher food and not torturing animals, right? And so it says in the Midrash, what should you do? Move 2 or 3 places from the place that you might have thought is appropriate. In other words, in English you'd say cut yourself down a level or 2, right? Take yourself down a notch or 2. Rather let people say come up than people say go down. Right? What place should you walk into a room, right? You're in a meeting, you sit in a meeting. Don't sit in the head of the meeting so they have to say, excuse me, that's the president's seat, move down. Rather sit in the lowly seat, let them say, no, we want you to come move up, right? Rather be in a place where you under-assert yourself and people should elevate you rather than be humiliated when people take you down. No? But I'll call it, it's much safer being among, it's much safer making yourself less honored than more. Now when you make yourself more honored, you invite attacks and ayin hara and spiritual danger. You don't do it, just sit in the, But I'll call him maktin atzmo, but anybody who minimizes his presence, amruzal they say, kol mi shemaktin atzmo al divrei Torah, anybody who belittles himself or lowers himself when it comes to Torah, ba'olam hazeh, in this world, naseh gadol alam haba, will be elevated in the next world. In this world, you need to be humble. That is an honor in the genuine world, which is an upside down world. Keneged ze amru, and about this they have said, haser hamitznefet v'harem ha'atara. How do you translate that? Remove the, what's a mitznefet? The adornment on the head.
Adornment on the head or a cup, yeah.
And then you can elevate the crown. I don't know exactly how you understand that, but it means the fact of meaning is take away the symbol of your pride, and that way you will elevate the real crown. He says what it really means is that in this world you are underplaying your dignity, so that the real crown in the world to come will shine. How does he do it in English?
Remove the turban and lift off the crown.
Oh, I see. Take both of them off. Is that what he says?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's his. In other words, the Midrash is telling you, take off symbols of greatness and leadership, right? The Kohen Gadol wears the crown and the turban. You don't have to walk around with your all your medals, you know. And every time you go to the local supermarket, you put on your medals and your. Kol mi shehu gadol ba'olam hazeh katon ba'olam haba. Anybody who makes himself aggrandized in this world is lowly in the world to come. Uminah lehevech, and you can learn the opposite from this. You say in English, vice versa. Mishu katon ba'olam hazeh. Somebody makes himself small in this world. Zman gdulato ba'olam haba. His time of greatness is in the world to come, and of course that is what you're aiming for. Va'amru lo'olam yilmad adam midat kono. Let a person always learn from his the wisdom of his creator. Sharei hiniach HaKadosh Baruch Hu kol harim ugvaot v'ishrash kemato lahar Sinai. Right? You want to learn this conduct? When Hashem wanted to give the Torah, meaning appear among the Jewish people, He did not choose Mount Everest, right? He chose Mount Sinai, which is a lowly mountain. Of course, He didn't choose a valley either. Right? He chose a mountain. That's fitting for the dignity. Hashem's going to appear in the world. But He didn't choose the highest mountain, which can go around and saying, I'm the highest in the world. Right? Hashem chose a mountain that is a modest-sized mountain. What sort of house should you live in? Decent, nice. Huh? Doesn't have to be everyone walking past them there. They have to point out your wealth and your importance. Also, the outside of your house should be more modest than the inside. The inside, you have some wealth and you want to express it, and it's good for you in some way. That's okay. You don't have to rub it in the faces of the. I saw a photograph of a gold Ferrari. It's popped outside in Pall Mall someplace, like gold Ferrari. You know, you have to make it gold, right?
Oh. There are 3 cars like this in central London.
3 cars like that.
3 gold cars.
Gold.
Gold plated, yeah. And they get parked in different places. The Range Rover, a Bentley, and maybe the Ferrari.
That's to be gold plated.
Yeah.
If you're a dealer, or maybe maybe there's a reason.
Some shake.
Qatar, it belongs to
Huh?
Qatar.
Some shake.
There's a Mishnah in Shabbat says Balabait Bifnim Ani Bachutz. You know, the Mishnah in Shabbat starts with how you're giving and taking. So the Balabait, the householder, stands inside, the poor man stands on the step, and now the Mishnah begins to discuss who's giving from inside to outside, what's forbidden. So the Balai Musa say very deeply, be a Ani Bachutz and a Balabait Bifnim. That's what it's telling you. Be a Balabait inside, a householder, you have a proper house. Outside, the outside of your house should be simple. The outside, inside, you want to make it beautiful inside if you want and you need, maybe. You don't have to force that on the outside. The outside should be nice, decent, appropriate according to the standards of.
Indeed,
of course, very beautiful. Why did the Mishnah have to choose the Shabbat, which is a hint to the world to come? What's the genuine values in the world? Balabait Bifnim. It's much healthier view that way. Of course, the worst, the people who don't have much inside, but they go and show wealth outside. That's so. This attracts the wrong kind of attention. No need to do that. So that's what Hashem did. He chose Mount Sinai, dignified as a mountain, but not the highest. Because Hashem Himself, God Himself, manifests in the world with a certain reserve. Beautiful. She'erit nachalato. That's it. The simple translation means the remnant of his inheritance. We, the Jewish people, are she'erit. She'erit means the remnant, the ones who survive, right, of his inheritance. But the play on words is shirayim. Shirayim is like the leftovers. Right? Shirayim is the leftovers.
Taurus.
So that yes, shirayim means which is left over. Make yourself like the leftovers. You know, I'm just an afterthought. Achelek hasheni hu sevilat chayobonot. Okay, let's get to the third one. So we spoke about the way you talk pleasantly and calmly. We spoke about the way you walk, which is with a certain walk and conduct yourself, and where you sit and so forth, right? These are ways of being dignified and refined, but not overdone. Now let's talk about being insulted. How should you respond when people insult you? Hinei beferish amru. It says openly, Lemi noisei avon. Who is the one who Hashem overlooks his sins? Lemishi over al pesha. Because it says nosei avon over al pesha, right? It so to speak says God is the one who holds sin. Nosei avon. He upholds sin, let's say, supports you when you sin, and overlooks iniquity. That's the simple translation, but the deep translation is Lemi nosei avon. To whom does Hashem hold up his sin? In other words, not punish him for his sin. Who does he forgive? The one who is over al pesha, the one who is overlooks people harm him. So somebody insults you. Again, I'm not talking about somebody offends you and harms you in a way that's legal, where you can extract a legal payment. I'm not talking about sustaining damage that's unnecessary. But when somebody insults you, right, and they curse you and insult you and so forth, so the one who does not take that personally, right? That's the one who Hashem also doesn't take personally his transgressions. That means being able to absorb insults without yelling and screaming and insulting the other person. But Amrod, and he also say, the great spiritual people are people who can take being insulted and they don't feel the need to insult other people. Shom'im cherpatan, they hear their disgrace, ve'enam meshivim, do not feel the need to answer. That means somebody yells and screams and insults you, you don't need to make an answer. By the way, it's often a much more effective answer. Much more effective, just God can start yelling and screaming and you're above that. Alema katub omer, and on those people the verse says, it's like the sun goes out, right? Like the sun going out in his power. The Sifru migodel anvato shel Baba ben Butter. The Gemara gives an example of the great Rabbi Baba ben Butter, who Ahu bar Babel, the Sadik la'Arab Israel. What happened? There was a man from Babylon who moved to Israel. Nasiv Itavan, he married a woman there. This is an interesting story. There was a Babylonian Jew, he moved to Israel, and he married a local woman. Now you know that they spoke different dialects of Aramaic in Babylon and Israel. Right? There was different slang and different dialects of the language. If you read the Yerushalmi, you'll see very often the language is very strange compared to the Babylon. So this man, speaking a Babylonian Aramaic dialect, he married a woman from Israel, right? Now you know you marry a woman who doesn't speak the same language as you, recipe for disaster.
Or not.
Well, if you can't speak, let me say this. If you marry a woman where you can't speak each other at all, you're okay. I once met a couple, I was giving the shoes some place, I met a couple there, they told me, she was from Uruguay and he was from Romania. They met in a displaced persons camp after the war, 1 year after the Second World War. She was from Uruguay, he was from Romania. They got married without being able to understand one word of each other. Not one word. They told me it was the most wonderful marriage, they told me. They never argued. They never argued. When they started to speak to each other, things got complicated. They had the most wonderful relationship. So marry a woman who doesn't understand a word, you're fine. It's when you misunderstand that the trouble arises, right? So this husband comes and he marries this girl from Israel. Amala, he said to her, Bishili li, he said, please cook for me a certain kind of bean, whatever it was. Zili tabri yahon al reisha de baba. And he said to her, go and get them or grind them on the certain the reisha de baba, which meant, let's say, the place where she was going to do it. But she didn't understand. Havayati Baba ben Buta b'dayin dina. So Baba ben Buta has the same name. He said Baba, right? And this she didn't understand his dialect. The Baba she knew was Rabbi Baba ben Buta. So she went and she smashed the thing on the rabbi's head. He was sitting and judging. Azlas v'tabras yahonal reisha. She went and ground the beans on his head, or she smashed whatever it was on his head. You understand the situation? She was a very obedient wife. The husband said, could you please go and grind these beans for me? He thought, could you please go and smash the rabbi on the head? So she thought, well, my husband comes first. If he wants the rabbi smashed on the head, that's what I'm going to do.
It says, it says, cook for me 2 feet of a cow.
Yes.
And she did the beans, the lentils.
What about smashing the rabbi on the head?
Yeah, that came later.
But that came later, okay, yeah. All right. So she misunderstood. And one of the things she misunderstood was very embarrassing. Amala, the rabbi said to her, my hadden dava. The rabbi said to her, my dear, what did you do? What did you just... The rabbi didn't start yelling and screaming and to give a court case. He said to the lady, what is this? Amrullah, she said to the rabbi, my husband commanded me. My husband told me to do this. Amar, at asis v'tzol balech. He said to the woman, you did the will of your husband. Amakom yitzi mimech shnei banim kababa b'nuta. I give you a blessing. Hashem will cause you to have 2 children, 2 sons like me. In other words, leaders and rabbis like me, right? That's quite a feat of self-control, right? If you were sitting judging a judgment in public and a lady walked up and smashed a can of beans on your head, I don't think you would give her a blessing. That's what there must be a reason for this. If it was your parents, by the way, you also have to manifest self-control. You can't manifest your parents. Your parents will start tearing up your money and insulting you in public, you're not allowed to say anything. That's a law. This is going beyond the law. V'hillel kamochein sipru mirov anbusanuso b'masechet Shabbat. And the Hillel was a great humble individual, and the Torah tells about it. Zeh l'shonan, tanu rabbanan, la'olam yehei adam anvutan kehillel. person should always be a very humble like Hillel. And what happened over there, you know, a person came and said, Rabbi, teach me the whole Torah standing on one leg, right? Or another person came and said, Mi kan Hillel, right? Friday afternoon, he's in the bath, just before Shabbat. The guy walks into the courtyard and says, Mi kan Hillel, right? Who's Hillel? Not Rabbi, you know. So he came out in his bathrobe, and the guy said to him, Rabbi, why do the Chinese have slit eyes? You know, just winding him up, right? He said, well, they live in windy places, you know, the sand, it's, you know. He goes back in the bath, the guy walks in, Mi kan Hillel. Comes out, yes, my son. He said, why do the Patagonians have big feet? He said, they walk on the soft sand, you know, they shouldn't sink in, you know. Tries again, you know. Eventually he comes and he says, remember, I lost 400 zuz because of you. I was taken on a bet I could make you get angry, you know. And of course he chose Friday afternoon, you know, Shabbos is coming in, people get tense, ask them ridiculous questions. He said, my son, it's better that you should lose 400 zuz than I should get angry. Are we like that when the phone rings at exactly the wrong moment when you're trying to get something done, somebody wants to speak to you, you know? Yeah.
It's interesting that Hillel is through the whole of Shas. Hillel is never called Rav Hillel, and Shammai as well.
Yeah.
They are always without.
Yeah, it's a great title to have no title. Hillel, by the way, was Makbid. Hillel used to measure things by measure. That was his measure was the dignity of Kabbalah Torah. Somebody asked a ridiculous question, he sent him away. It was his appropriate. By the way, it's very interesting. If I was telling you which one should you choose, Hillel was a great leader, and he had Amat HaBinyan B'yado. He carried a measuring rule in his hand. That means every behavior had to measure up to the rule. And Hillel was completely self-effacing. So he says, don't be like them, be like them. So the question is asked, well, what was Bashama behaving that way? And the answer is, if you have a certain personality, if you're a teacher who manifests that personality, that's the one you have to use with good judgment. If you're not decided, you should be like Hillel. That's what Rashi said. If you're vacillating between the two, what should a person, well, how should I teach? Be more demanding or more self-effacing? Then you should tend to the side of being self-effacing. But if your personality is midas adin, if that's the kind of person you are, and that's the kind of teacher you are, and you can manifest that and live on the level, then you could do it. And Shammai did that. Only the default position is to move to the side of humility.
But that's also the man of the view, is that correct?
Of course, that's right. If you're going to live on that level and insult people and call them up, you better be living on a level of perfection, right? You can't tell other people why'd you come late if you come late. Much easier to go the other way, I can assure you. Are people waiting? There's just one more minute, yeah? So Hillel was this one who was Rabbi Abahu. Achrei Reiv an Vasoi Matzah Shadayin Lo Higir L'Yisrael Likari Anav. And Rabbi Abahu, he was incredibly humble and still he felt he had not tried enough. Zeloshanam Amar Rabbi Abahu. First I thought I was a humble person. Kevin the Chazela Rabbi Abba, the Akho, the Amar, you Chad Tama. I thought I was very humble. But then I saw this other rabbi behaving in a more humble way than I did. What happened? He was giving a lecture, and his spokesman was not saying accurately what he was saying. That way, the rabbi's teaching Torah, right? The way they did it was the rabbi would get up and teach, and there would be a spokesman who would broadcast his message to the big crowd. And he saw that the spokesman was not saying accurately what he was saying. Not that he wasn't, never insulted him, but he never said. Imagine you're trying to send a message that's very important and somebody's distorting your message. You get very upset. He didn't handle it like that, right? And he said, I realized I was not yet... Alright, let's stop at this point because the conversation will continue on Hanukkah, right? I wish you all a wonderful